It was an ordinary Tuesday morning in the suburbs of Chicago. A 12-year-old girl woke up with a sore throat and a runny nose. Her parents did what any parent would do. They reached into the medicine cabinet. They pulled out a bottle of Extra-Strength Tylenol, one of the most trusted brand names in America, and they gave their daughter one capsule. She was dead before 7 a.m., and she was just the first. Within 72 hours, 7 people in the Chicago metropolitan area would be dead. Victims ranging from 12 to 35 years old. A postal worker, a new mother, a flight attendant. 3 members of the same family who gathered to grieve one death and ended up dying themselves. The killer was never caught. The case is still open today. And yet, what this monster did accidentally changed the way every single person on Earth takes medicine. Those tamper-proof seals under your bottle caps, the foil covering on your vitamins, the child-proof packaging on every pill bottle in your home. They exist because of these 7 murders. This is the story of the 1982 Chicago Tylenol Murders. To understand the terror of what happened in the fall of 1982, you have to understand the world it happened in. This was a different era. Consumer trust was almost absolute. People didn't question what was on store shelves. Nobody imagined that someone would walk into a Jewel Foods or a Walgreens, pick up a bottle of medicine, and do something to it. The idea was simply unthinkable. Tylenol, manufactured by McNeil Consumer Products, a subsidiary of the healthcare giant Johnson & Johnson, was the best-selling over-the-counter painkiller in the United States. The gelatin capsule form was especially popular because it was smooth, easy to swallow, and fast-acting. Americans consumed it by the millions. It was in nearly every medicine cabinet in the country. It was the most trusted pill in America. And someone had decided to weaponize that trust. The geography of this crime matters. The tampered bottles weren't found in one store. They were found across at least 6 different retail locations, 2 Jewel Foods grocery stores, an Osco Drug, a Walgreens, a Dominick's, and a Frank's Finer Foods, all spread across the Chicago metropolitan area. That distribution pattern told investigators something immediately chilling. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a disgruntled employee at a factory. This was someone, or possibly more than one person, who had moved deliberately, methodically across the city, placing poison on the shelves and walking away. To this day, we don't know who that person was. Wednesday, September 29th, 1982, 6:30 in the morning. In Elk Grove Village, Illinois, a quiet suburb northwest of Chicago, 12-year-old Mary Kellerman told her parents she wasn't feeling well. A head cold, a sore throat, the kind of thing that happens to kids all the time. Her parents gave her 1 capsule of Extra-Strength Tylenol and sent her to the bathroom. Minutes later, she collapsed on the floor. By 7 a.m., Mary Kellerman was dead. Across town that same morning, Adam Janus, a 27-year-old postal worker from Arlington Heights, also took Extra-Strength Tylenol for chest pain. He too collapsed. He was rushed to Northwest Community Hospital, where doctors initially believed he had suffered a massive heart attack. He died shortly after. Word spread through the Janus family. Relatives gathered at Adam's home to mourn, to hold each other, to make sense of a young man dying so suddenly. Among those who arrived were Adam's younger brother, Stanley Janus, 25 years old, and his 19-year-old wife, Theresa. In the grief and exhaustion of that afternoon, Stanley and Theresa each took a Tylenol from the same bottle Adam had used. Stanley Janus died within hours. Theresa Janus lingered in critical condition before dying 2 days later. 3 members of one family, 1 bottle, gone. Over the next several days, 3 more deaths were reported. Mary McFarland, 31 years old, a telephone operator from Lombard, Illinois, dead. Mary Reiner, 27 years old, a new mother from Winfield who had just given birth, dead. Paula Prince, 35 years old, a United Airlines flight attendant from Chicago's Old Town neighborhood, dead. Her body was found in her apartment. A bottle of Tylenol was on her bathroom counter. Investigators found that she had purchased it just the night before at a Walgreens on North Wells Street. Security camera footage, grainy, black and white, showed her picking the bottle off the shelf. Paula Prince was the last victim, but nobody knew that yet. By the time investigators connected the deaths, Chicago, and then the entire country, had begun to realize something terrifying was happening. The breakthrough came almost by accident. At Northwest Community Hospital in Arlington Heights, a nurse named Helen Jensen, the township's only public health official, had been tracking the unusual cluster of deaths. When she visited the Janus family home, she noticed something. A Tylenol bottle. She picked it up. The receipt attached showed it had been purchased the same day Adam Janus died. 6 capsules were missing. She turned the bottle over to investigator Nick Pichos and reported her suspicion. The bottle was rushed to the lab. The results came back and confirmed the nightmare. The capsules had been emptied and refilled with potassium cyanide, one of the most lethal substances known to man. The concentration found in each capsule was staggering. Investigators later noted the doses were tens of thousands of times higher than what would be necessary to kill a person. The killer wasn't taking any chances. Within hours, emergency broadcasts went out across Chicago. Police drove through neighborhoods with loudspeakers, an almost unimaginable image today, warning residents not to take Tylenol. The Illinois Poison Control Center, which typically received between 40 and 60 calls per day, received nearly 800 calls in a single 24-hour period. Hospitals were overwhelmed with patients convinced they had been poisoned. Johnson & Johnson, to their credit, responded swiftly. The company immediately halted production and advertising, collaborated openly with law enforcement and the FDA, and issued a nationwide recall of all Tylenol products. Over 31 million bottles, with a retail value exceeding $100 million, were pulled from shelves. It was one of the largest product recalls in American history. Chicago Mayor Jane Byrne personally banned the sale of Tylenol within city limits, but someone still had to be found. The investigation became one of the largest in American law enforcement history. Local police, the Illinois State Police, the FBI, the FDA, all working simultaneously, often in overlapping and sometimes competing ways. Thousands of leads were generated. Hundreds of people were interviewed. Every Tylenol bottle in the Chicago area that could be recovered was tested. 5 additional bottles with contaminated capsules were found, bottles that had never been purchased. They had been sitting on shelves, waiting. Investigators quickly established that the tampering had not occurred at the manufacturing level. 2 of the victims had ingested Tylenol manufactured at different factories, one in Pennsylvania, one in Texas. No cross-contamination was possible at that scale in that short a time. The cyanide, a caustic substance, would have visibly degraded the gelatin capsules over any extended period. The conclusion was unavoidable. Someone had gone into retail stores, removed bottles from the shelves, brought them somewhere private, opened the capsules, filled them with cyanide, resealed them, and placed them back on store shelves. Calculated, patient, remorseless. 3 primary suspects emerged over the course of the investigation. Their identities and stories varied dramatically. James William Lewis became the most notorious figure connected to the case, though not for the poisonings themselves. 2 weeks after the murders, Johnson & Johnson received a letter. The author claimed responsibility for the deaths and demanded $1 million to stop the killings. The letter was signed with a fictitious name, but authorities traced it to James William Lewis, a Missouri-born drifter with a complex and disturbing history who had briefly lived in Chicago under an assumed name. When his photograph was distributed, Kansas City police recognized him immediately. A manhunt followed. Lewis had been writing letters, including several to the Chicago Tribune, and investigators used clues embedded in those letters to track him down in New York City, where he was arrested in December 1982. Here is where it gets complicated and where we must be careful. Lewis denied being the poisoner. He admitted to writing the extortion letter, claiming his intent was not to take credit, but to, as his attorneys argued, focus the attention of authorities on his wife's former employer. The explanation was bizarre, but investigators could not definitively place Lewis in Chicago during the critical period. He and his wife were reportedly living in New York at the time. In October 1983, Lewis was convicted, not of murder, not of poisoning, but of extortion. He was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. He served 13 years total, including time for unrelated crimes. In 2007, as the 25th anniversary of the murders renewed public interest, the Department of Justice took a fresh look. Court documents released in 2009 revealed that DOJ investigators had internally concluded Lewis was likely responsible for the poisonings, but that they did not have sufficient evidence to bring charges. In 2011, the FBI went so far as to request DNA samples from Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, whose first 4 crimes occurred in Chicago and its suburbs, and whose parents had a home in suburban Lombard, Illinois, where he occasionally stayed in 1982. Kaczynski denied any involvement and denied ever possessing potassium cyanide. He was never charged in connection with the Tylenol case. A second unnamed suspect, described publicly only as an amateur chemist who had worked at a Tylenol-connected warehouse, was investigated after a search of his home revealed books on poisons, laboratory equipment, and research on methods of poisoning. He admitted to having once possessed cyanide, though none was found during the search. He was later charged with an unrelated murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison. Investigators ultimately ruled him out as the Tylenol killer. On July 9, 2023, James Lewis died at his home in suburban Boston. He was 76 years old. He maintained until his death that he had not committed the murders. With his passing, the case's most prominent suspect is gone, and the prospect of a criminal charge becomes even more remote. The 1982 Chicago Tylenol murders remain officially unsolved as of 2026. No one has ever been charged with the poisonings. No one has ever been convicted of murder in connection with these 7 deaths. The obstacles that prevented resolution are multiple and, in some ways, reflect the limitations of forensic science in 1982. DNA profiling as we know it today did not exist. Surveillance cameras were rare and low quality. Digital records of retail transactions were virtually non-existent. By the time modern forensic tools became available, decades had passed. Evidence degrades, memories fade, witnesses age and die, suspects die. The Chicago Tribune's investigative team, in a landmark 2022 series published on the 40th anniversary of the murders, reviewed tens of thousands of pages of records, including sealed affidavits and confidential documents, and interviewed more than 150 people, many of them retired investigators who still actively think about the case. Their conclusion: the case is heartbreaking, not just for the families of the victims, but for everyone who worked it. A case this significant, this historic, without an ending. It is worth noting, clearly and carefully, no theory about who committed these murders has ever been proven. The suspects discussed publicly are persons of interest who were investigated, not convicted killers. Any claim of certainty about who did this would be irresponsible and factually wrong. The case remains open. Right now, wherever you are, in your bathroom, your kitchen, your bag, there is almost certainly a bottle of medicine. Pick it up. Look at it. The outer shrink wrap around the lid, the foil seal under the cap, the child-resistant cap itself, the tamper-evident ring that breaks away when you first open it. Every single one of those features so familiar we no longer even think about them, did not exist before the fall of 1982. In the immediate aftermath of the murders, Johnson & Johnson's response became a landmark in corporate crisis management, studied in business schools to this day. The company chose transparency and public safety over profit, pulling 31 million bottles at a cost of over $100 million, and it saved the Tylenol brand. Within months, Tylenol returned to shelves in redesigned, triple-sealed, tamper-proof packaging. Consumer trust was rebuilt, arguably stronger than before. In 1983, the United States Congress passed what became known informally as the Tylenol Bill, the Federal Anti-Tampering Act, making it a federal felony to tamper with consumer products. The law was a direct and unambiguous response to the Chicago murders. In 1989, the FDA established comprehensive mandatory guidelines requiring tamper-evident packaging across the pharmaceutical and food industries. The ripple effects extended further than medicine bottles. The murders triggered nationwide hysteria over Halloween candy safety, fueling decades of warnings about tampered treats that, while largely unfounded in other cases, reflected the raw fear that 1982 had unleashed. The case also directly inspired a wave of copycat crimes, hundreds of product tampering incidents across the country in the months that followed, demonstrating how one act of calculated evil can become a terrifying template. 7 people went to their medicine cabinets for ordinary reasons: a sore throat, a headache, back pain, the kind of thing that happens to all of us, and they never came home. Mary Kellerman was 12 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. Adam Janus was a postal worker, somebody's son, somebody's brother. Stanley and Theresa Janus died within days of their wedding anniversary. Mary Reiner was a new mother. Paula Prince was a flight attendant who had just returned from a trip. Mary McFarland was someone's daughter, someone's colleague, someone who showed up to work every day. Their names deserve to be remembered, not as symbols, not as statistics in a packaging regulation case study, as people. There is something deeply unsettling about a case that changed the world and never found justice. We want stories to have endings. We want the killer caught, the gavel to fall, the sentence to be read. We want resolution, not just for the victims' families who have lived for over 4 decades without an answer, but for ourselves. Because an unsolved case of this magnitude is a reminder that evil doesn't always get punished. That someone, somewhere, may have walked free for 40 years while the rest of the world quietly absorbed the consequences of what they did. The 1982 Chicago Tylenol murders remind us that trust is fragile, that safety is never absolute, that the systems we rely on every day, the stores, the products, the packaging, can be compromised by a single malicious mind. But they also remind us of something else. That human beings, when confronted with something terrible, have the capacity to adapt, to protect, to learn. The scientists who rushed to labs, the nurses who noticed something was wrong, the executives who chose public safety over profit, the legislators who turned grief into law. Every one of those people made the world, in some small but permanent way, safer. The next time you open a bottle of medicine and hear that small, satisfying crack of a tamper-proof seal, take a moment. 7 people died so that sound could exist. If this story moved you, share it. These 7 people deserve to be remembered. And if you have any information about the 1982 Chicago Tylenol murders, the FBI's tip line remains open to this day. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story that history forgot, but shouldn't have.